This video is a quick walkthrough of how I made this dragon boat. I start with a UV sphere, lower its topology, and then rotate it onto its side. After checking the camera is set to orthographic, I use the project tool with flip turned on and draw a rectangle for the bottom of the hull. Turn on symmetry on the Z axis for world symmetry. Shape the front of the boat. Here I'm using the project tool to project the shape upwards, then smoothing it out with the smooth tool and adjusting it with the move tool. I made some more adjustments to the shape, invert the mask, and then use the gizmo tool to drag the back of the boat backwards. My boat is a bit too tall, so I use the move tool to adjust. Here I'm shaping the back of the boat. A common technique is to mask out the area, then blur it and invert the mask. So now if you use the move tool, the adjustments will be smoother. I also like to start with low topology, as you can see, because when we subdivide later, the topology will be much smoother. For the tail and also the wispy hairs going off the head, I start by adding a cylinder, rotate it forwards, and then mask out the front face, and use the trim tool to trim away everything else. After clearing the mask and moving it into position, I use the move tool to adjust the shape. Then I subdivide it with multi-res so that it becomes smoother, and make some further adjustments. For the head, I start by adding a sphere and lowering the post subdivision. Then duplicating this sphere, I make the top of the mouth and the bottom of the mouth. To fix the shape of the top of the mouth, I use the mask tool and gizmo to reshape it. I also use spheres for the eyes and the nostrils. And we can use the move tool to adjust the face shape. For the wispy hairs on the back of the dragon head, I duplicate the tail and adjust the rotation and shape. And similarly for the other hairs on the face and the cheek. For the antlers, I use the tube tool, lower the topology, adjust the radius, and duplicate this for the front part of the antler. Validate when done, and then use the move tool to drag the top vertex outwards so that the antler becomes more rounded. I use the tube tool with snap at every point to outline the mouth, and then I lower the topology and turn on spline. And doing a second outline of the mouth with a larger tube. For the tongue, I start with the tube as well, but I flatten it vertically along the green dot, and then stretch the radius. After adjusting the shape and moving it into plates, I also realized the cross section was a triangle, so I raised the division X to 4. For the teeth, I added a cone, scaled it so that it fit in place, and then lowered the topology. The shape is approximate and I'll be adjusting it more later. Going back to the body of the boat, I use the mask tool to mask out the area that will be on the hull, and then extract shell to extract it. Subdivide with multi-resolution. You can see the shape becomes a lot smoother. Now we can create the outlines for parts of the boat. I mask out the edge using selection mask, clean up any vertices that were missed, and then use extract shell. Then I also do the same thing, but extract with none for the bottom of the boat. I'm doing this because then I can create the second set of outlines. So with the selection mask, I mask out the border of this shape, clean up this mask, and then trimmed away everything except for what was masked. Clear and invert the mask to select everything, and then extract shell. For the scales on the bottom of the boat, I use the selection mask to mask out every other pair, and then extract shell. And here's what the hull looks like now, with wireframe turned off. For the tail and the similar parts on the face, I used the mask tool and then extracted shell. It wasn't thick enough, so I used the gizmo tool to scale upwards. With the gizmo, clone it, resize it, and scale it along the blue direction. After merging them, I cloned it a couple of times, repositioned and rescaled them. And similarly for each of the face parts. At this point, I went around and subdivided most of the shapes, including the antlers and the face. So you can see the topology is much more smooth. Use the Move tool to reshape the teeth so that they become more curved. And use the Gizmo and Mask tools to finalize the teeth positions. Add a cube and lower its division as much as possible. Scale and position it inside the boat. Time to start painting! One trick I like to use to paint faster is to mask all the areas that are the same color so that I can invert the mask and paint all at the same time. I realized I wanted bumps on the snout, so I used the Mask tool and extracted shell, subdivided it, and reshaped and duplicated this a few times. Note that I've already merged everything at this point. Time to create an outline. I duplicate everything, clear any masks, with the fall off set to the constant, and set to grab dynamic radius. I zoom out a lot, and then inflate the entire shape. Since the inflating was done on a new layer, I use the layer slider to adjust the thickness of this outline, and turn on inverse culling. I set the shading to unlit, added some darker paint on a new layer, and lower the opacity of that paint, and resize the outline. Use the Tube tool to draw in the scales and the whiskers. And that's it, thanks for watching!